Hi, this is Mark Arnold with another Fun Ideas podcast. And today I have a returning guest who was previously audio only, but now he's a video star. It's Eddie DeAngelini, the owner of Heidi Ho Comics. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me back.
Okay. And like I was discussing with you briefly before we came on, I said, I was listening to the first episode and you're all excited because you got a comic store and everything like that. And then I had you a second time and it was during the pandemic and you were not in the best of spirits, but mildly. And I'm wondering if anybody's listening to these shows or watching these shows, they go, whatever happened to that guy? you know? So I wanted to bring you back in the video world also and just kind of touch bases and see what's going on with you and what's going on with Collector's Comic and everything else that's in your life.
And well, where do we begin? Goodness. A lot definitely has changed since we last talked in the midst of the pandemic and the shop being looted and all that. And
I forgot
anyone
about that.
who's right now going, wait, what? You can go back to the previous episode and listen to the whole story. So, shop is still around. We're still good.
Cool.
We had a move. We moved the shop in August of last year. I don't know where exactly we left off when we talked last regarding the pandemic, but we kind of had a little bit of back and forth going with our landlord at the time at the location that we were at when the pandemic started and when where we were looted.
Mm,
And when the lockdown was over, he was just telling us, okay, you guys are open again. You can start paying the full rent because he was nice enough to the couple months or so that we were locked down to just tell us you don't have to pay when you guys are closed. But when we were able to open up again, he was just telling us, okay, rent is due. You guys can start paying the rent. And we were saying, no, no, that's not the case because there's still nobody around. The whole town, this is Santa Monica, where the shop is at. It's a ghost town.
right.
There's nobody around. So we're still hurting and not making money because nobody's coming in. We have our few regulars that were very loyal during that time that were still coming and spending money and trying to help us out. But that area relies on a large amount of tourist dollars.
Mhm.
And we do have a lot of tourists that come in that area, especially in the summertime, and spend a lot of money with us. And they were all gone. There were no tourists.
Mm,
And even now, it's just slowly coming back. We're happy when someone comes in the store and we hear them speaking with an accent or speaking with a party that we're with in another language because we're thinking, oh, great, people from other countries out of town. They're going to spend money. They're coming back. But it's still to this day is not fully back the way it was. So we kind of had a bit of a back and forth with our landlord as far as trying to deal with the rent, maybe get it adjusted, lower it for a temporary period of time while the area is still not seeing the resurgence that it should. And all of that kind of just didn't go anywhere. And we decided, this is a perfect time to do what we can to you know, get out of that lease and move to a different spot that is more affordable with the way things are now. So that's what we did in August of last year.
mm,
And that has been a pretty good help to keep the shop going. The rent is obviously cheaper. It's a little bit smaller, but we're dealing with it. The regulars love the new location.
mhm.
We're getting a lot more people coming in, new people coming in. And what's really nice is a lot of the regulars love the fact that we have a parking lot right in front of the shop, where the old one we didn't. So that was a big deal for them in wanting to come back on a regular basis. So that's where we're at now. I actually had a bit of a change in my life because the last time we talked, I believe I was still actively managing the shop,
Mhm.
and my wife is as assistant manager working with me. But the truth is, we were both managing the shop equally. We were relying on each other. And since we last talked, I realized, I'm just getting burnt out on this. Not necessarily owning the shop, but managing it day to day
Right.
and doing the hour, 2 hour drive sometimes to get to the shop and get home from the shop.
Mhm.
It's only 20 miles away, the shop, but this is LA traffic. So
Right.
there are times where it takes you 2 to 3 hours to get home in traffic. And I had enough of that. And I decided to step down as the active manager and we were going to maybe find someone else to take that place. But my wife was the one who said, I want to step up and I want to do it.
Wow.
So
That's cool.
she's actually actively managing the shop right now. And I'm still, we're still part owners of the shop. So I'm still behind the scenes doing owner type stuff. And I'm behind the scenes also helping her with tasks here and there as I can. And I still go in maybe once, maybe twice a week to help out with certain things, or if we have events or stuff like that. But I wanted more time for myself
Hmm.
to work on my own creative pursuits, which
Right.
is my comic strip.
Hmm.
And that's really, I think, been um, just a bit of a real saving grace for me as far as just my happiness and my mental health, I think,
Hmm.
because I was really to the point where I had just gotten so burned out on trying to do both my comic strip and manage the shop and be there so much so many hours out of the week, and to the point where I was unhappy. I
Hmm.
enjoyed owning the shop, but being the person that's there day in day out, it just wore on me.
Yeah.
So a bit of a change for me.
Hmm.
So now I'm home more.
Hmm.
I do work from home. I'm working on my comic strip more. I'm planning more things that I want to do with that. I came out with 3 more books since we last talked,
Hmm.
and I've got plans for the coming year that I want to do with my creative career. And I'm really, really enjoying having more time to be able to focus on that. And in the meantime, I'm still connected to the shop with my wife managing it and helping her where I can, and still, helping out 1 or 2 days a week and helping with events. Like obviously the holidays are coming up, so it's going to be a really busy time. So that's been a big change for me personally.
Hmm. Now, how's she handling it? Does she regret her decision, or is she loving it?
I honestly, I think some days that she does, but I think that she does enjoy it as well.
Hmm.
We have a really great staff. We get along
Hmm.
with them really well. They love us,
Hmm.
and it's almost like a bit of a family. And I think that being with them, for my wife, being with them day in and day out, I think is a bit of um, a bit her happiness and her support as far as being at the shop. And I have to give her credit in a lot of ways. She is a much better manager than I ever was.
I figured you're
Uh,
gonna say that.
the staff, they love us both. They like me, but my wife, she speaks her mind. She is very no nonsense, especially when it comes to dealing with the staff. They love her to death, but
Hmm.
equally they fear her as well, which I think is a great manager right there.
Hmm.
Um, So she's always on top of things. In fact, when I was managing it, she was assistant manager. I really say it was equal footing because she was the one that was just keeping things on my plate and letting me know, you got to take care of this. This is coming up. Don't forget about this.
Yeah.
And that was a huge help. And I could not have ever have done it on my own without her. So
Right.
now she's in that position, and she is just so on top of everything,
That's
much
cool.
more than I was.
It's kind of amusing because the way you portray her in your collector's comics is like she has no interest whatsoever and would rather be sitting at home watching some uh reality shows or
Well, that part is
other
true.
TV show. Yeah,
That part is
but I
true.
mean no interest at all to even be
Yeah,
in a comic shop, even for management reasons.
right. Well, when I
I know it's
started doing,
humor and I know it's
yeah,
semi-fictitious, but it's still
semi-fictitious,
amusing.
semi-autobiographical. I always
Yeah,
tell people some of the
yeah.
things in my
Wow.
comic strips really happened, some didn't. I'll let you decide what's true and what's not. But when I started doing the comic strip, she wasn't reading comics. We didn't know in the shop, so she wasn't reading comics.
Mhm.
She didn't really know much about comics, and it's amazing how much that has kind of just turned around.
Mhm.
Not only is she managing the shop, but she also does a podcast
Hmm.
with one of our former employees and another friend called Comadres y Comics. And they're 3 Latinas who do a podcast about comics from a Latin perspective, about Latin creators, Latin comic book characters. So she's just, totally into it now at this point.
Wow.
She's just all in.
That's great.
Yeah.
So now that you have all the free time, are you actually working on your other projects? I know how it's easy to, like, I got all this free time, I could do it, and then you end up not doing anything more.
Well,
You
that's
know?
what is odd because I think, oh, I got all this free time, but the truth is,
Yeah,
uh, I'm working, I think, just as hard as I was when I was managing the shop because
yeah,
I have more time to do all the other creative projects that I've been wanting to do, but I'm still very connected to the shop,
right.
having, the manager of the shop living under the same roof with me. So I'm, hearing about what's going on and I'm pitching in where I can to help her out and stuff. So it's still just constantly busy, but
Mhm.
I'm able to get more creatively done than I was before for sure. There were times where I would come home from the shop after, fighting LA traffic for 2.5 hours to get home, eat some dinner really quick to sit down and start doing a strip and be up until 2, 3 in the morning, and have to get up the next morning to get ready to go open the shop. And it got really old really quick. And now I have a little more time to actually sit down and do it and get a good night's sleep. So I
Mhm.
appreciate that. You know,
That's cool.
there are still nights where I'm into it and I'll stay up late drawing, but I'm doing it voluntarily, not because it's the only time I have to work on this
Right.
stuff.
I get that.
Yeah.
So, I guess, can you show some of the latest comics? I
Yeah.
don't know if I got the most recent one. I think the last one I got has like an American Splendor cover. So
Oh, okay. Then you do have the
is that the
latest
most
one
recent one?
because
Oh, okay. I
when
yeah,
I listened, like I mentioned, I listened to a previous episode that I was on to figure out, oh, where did we leave off? And apparently I
yeah.
listened to the wrong one. So I thought that you only had 1 through 4. And
Originally I did. Yeah. Yeah, I got
yeah,
that one.
5 you
Yep.
have.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
6 is this is the one where it's the American Splendor
Yeah.
um, cover. And then since then, what I did was because the first 3 books are completely sold out now. They're
Hmm.
gone. And I
Wow.
found that out the hard way when someone ordered it online off my website and I didn't have them and I was like, "Oh man."
Uh,
So
I know the feeling.
what I what I did was I put out a collected 200-page trade paperback that collects the
Yeah.
first
That I
3
don't
books
have. But
all
I
in.
have the 3 books originally, so yeah,
Yeah.
but that's a cool cover.
So
Yeah.
now when people come to my table at conventions and say, "Well, I love it, but do you have number 1? I want to start with number 1." Even though I tell them, "Hey, it's a comic strip just like in the newspapers, the Sunday funnies. You don't need to start from the beginning. You can jump in anywhere and start
Yeah.
enjoying it." That's still no good. They
Yeah.
always say, "But if I can't start with number 1, I don't want to,
You're
buy."
talking to collectors about
Yes.
collectors.
Yeah. So
Everybody
I've,
likes to start from the beginning.
yeah. So now they can start from the beginning. They can pick up the
Yeah,
trade paperback that collects the first 3 all in one. And
yeah,
what's really fun about this, because obviously I did an homage to the first appearance of Robin here on the cover.
right.
I had a good friend of mine who is a cover artist over at IDW.
Mhm.
I had him do a variant cover for me, and he did an homage
Oh,
of
wow.
Batman #9 from the Golden Age.
Yeah.
But as you can see, it's me and my wife, and me as little Robin. So yeah, that's what I've been up to, and I've got some plans in the work for the coming year that
Mhm,
I really want to get started on as well with all of this. So I'm excited that I actually have more time to be able to do this kind of thing now,
mhm.
along with still having the I guess the clout of saying I'm a comic shop owner,
Right,
co-owner.
right. It's almost like, I guess the comparison would be like Joe Ferrara of Atlantis Fantasy World. He still does show up at the shop. He's still the owner, but
Mhm.
he basically lets everyone else run the show. I mean, from what I can tell, I mean, I've interviewed him on my thing, but he's been in business 40 years, so
Yeah,
45 or something like that.
yeah.
So he
So
deserves
I
it.
imagine when you get to that point, you've really got everything running like a well-oiled machine. You can
Yeah,
step back because
yeah,
you've showed your employees, you trained them how you want everything done.
yeah,
And then you can kind of just step back. And if you've got good people, step back and just let them run the show.
yeah.
And, we're getting to that point too. Like I said, we have really, really great staff. I love them to death. They're all hardworking and they're all just really, really loyal and friendly. And, we do our best to take care of them as well. And I think they appreciate that. And we can step back too. Like we're at the point now where if my wife and I want to just take off for a weekend or whatever, we don't have to worry.
Yeah.
We know that they've got it.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. Yeah.
yeah,
Because that's kind of the way Joe works. If he needs to step in, he'll do it. But most of the time, he just lets the the show run on its own, as it were.
sure.
So
Yeah. And that happens from time to time with us too. Something happens, people get sick, people have doctor's appointments or personal matters or whatever, and other people can't cover that shift.
mhm.
My wife and I, we're the owners. If no one else can do it, it really falls on us. So we
Yeah.
step in and we take care of it.
Now, I also mentioned my friend Lee Hester. He's the one who got me to do this podcast at Lee's Comics. Now, he
Yeah.
decided when the pandemic, I probably said this in the previous show, that he just
He decided that's it for him.
close the shop, but he
Mhm.
didn't close the business. So
No.
he's all mail order, and he does some shows now. And I've even helped him out with some shows since things are starting to open up again and stuff like that.
Yeah, Lee and I kind of chat back and forth sometimes on
Oh, okay,
Facebook, and
cool.
I see the posts that he puts up of all the collections that he finds, and I'm jealous.
I don't know how he gets it because, see, I used to think, oh yeah, when you have shops, anybody can walk in. Hey, I've never been in a comic store before, but I got this great collection. Here, look. But when you're not running it as a storefront, how do you come across it? But he says, no, I go to people's houses. I travel. I take a truck if I need to, or whatever. I go, oh, okay,
Yeah, I have experience with that as well.
yeah,
Especially now that I have more time, I
mhm,
can actually, search and hunt for them, even in my own neighborhood,
yeah,
and find them and go get them. Whereas before, I was tied to the shop so much.
right,
My only way of getting collections was waiting for people to call or come in because I didn't have the time to go out and find them myself, and now I do.
mhm. Now,
Yeah.
during this whole time, I'm sure it crossed your mind, but did you ever think, that's it, I'm done. I got to close this shop. I'm done completely.
Uh
I mean, obviously you thought better of that and you're still in business, so that's good, but
Well, it never was a thought of that's it. Well, there were times where I thought I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. And it was kind of all around that
yeah,
time, but it was never a matter of, close down the shop. But there were times where I thought during all this happening that is, are we going to survive this? Is the shop going to survive it? Do we need to be ready for
right,
basically getting everything out of this location and putting it in storage and just saying that's it, shop's closed because, we have no choice?
right,
And that's really what it came down to before we moved,
mhm,
because like I said, going back and forth with the landlord about the rent, we kind of made it clear with them that if you don't work with us, because this is California, this is Southern California, Santa Monica,
yeah,
retail rents are absolutely outrageous.
yeah,
I hear stories of people, and I know some that are shop owners in other parts of California or other states where
yeah,
they tell me what they pay in rent, and I'm thinking, my God, that's cheaper than my house. And that's just not the case in Santa Monica. So we
right,
had to make it clear that if we don't do something as far as working with the landlord to try to, work out some kind of agreement to maybe temporarily lower the rent, it's going to put us out of business. We have no choice but to say,
yeah.
that's it. The shop's done. We
Wa
can't survive.
was it hard
Uh,
to get out of the lease, or was he
we have a really good lawyer. I let him handle that. I
Oh,
didn't
okay,
want to deal with it.
okay,
So,
okay.
um,
Fair enough. That's I don't need
yeah,
more than that, but,
right.
sometimes, "No, you're staying and you're gonna fill out your term and blah, blah,
I
blah," but anyway.
I wasn't the one
Yeah,
handling it. It was in
yeah,
good hands. I
yeah,
didn't have to worry about that. There were plenty of other things to
right.
worry about.
Now, all
So,
told, because I've forgotten, I have to listen to the old shows again. How long have you been the owner then? Uh, Co-owner, I guess.
God, it's been about, I think it's been about somewhere around 9 years now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of got over. They always say on starting your own business, if you can make it past like year 3 or 4 or something like that, you usually can survive the long term if nothing major happens.
Right.
It's
Right.
always those first 3 or 4 years that are the toughest.
Right.
Just
I think
uh,
it was a little different for us too because we weren't starting a shop. We were buying a
true,
shop that was already in business, already established, and had been around
right?
for, you know, uh, over 3 decades at that point.
True,
So that was a little different for us. We when we did buy it, though, unfortunately, it was kind of in a very major slump. It
yeah,
didn't have the best reputation at that time, and we really worked hard to turn it around.
Yeah.
And I think we, did a really good job of doing that. And then we moved to a much nicer place. This is before the pandemic. We
Hmm.
moved to what I believed was a much nicer place, and we were doing really well there. And then the pandemic hit.
Right.
And then that, for a lot of people, just completely changed everybody.
Mm.
And Santa Monica back then, when during the pandemic, during 2020, was really scary because it wasn't even a matter of our shop going to survive. It was more of a matter of looking around that area and thinking, is this whole business district, is this whole business area of the city going to survive? And
Hmm.
there was a lot of talk about, things really not surviving. And there are a lot of businesses that closed down during the pandemic, when they had to do the lockdown for 2, 3 months and never opened up again,
Hmm.
just gone.
How are your local competitors? I mean, I don't know what's considered local. I mean, like Golden Apple, is that even close?
It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
that close, really.
Yeah.
As far as our area, there
Uh,
really isn't another shop that's too close to us.
yeah.
We're the only shop in Santa Monica and that whole west side area. There
Yeah.
is one further south from us, but I honestly I don't really know too much about them.
Mm.
There are, let's see, well, there's Golden Apple. As far as I know, they're doing fine.
Mhm.
Uh, During the time that we got looted, a couple days before, they got some damage too, but
Ooh.
they're doing okay now.
Yeah.
And there's the Comic Bug in Manhattan Beach and Culver
Oh yeah.
City.
Yeah. I've heard of
They're
that. Yeah.
doing well. There is Jeffrey's Comics in
Oh
Torrance,
yeah. Oh
which
yeah. I've
is
been
my
there.
partner's
Hmm.
store that he owns 100%, and they're moving along. They're like most businesses right now. They're experiencing some problems, but my wife and I are doing what we can to kind of jump in there so every so often and help
Yeah.
out. We're kind of like drifting between the two shops
Mm.
as kind of like a managerial supervisor roles to take care of things. So um, we're bringing that store hopefully back up to a little bit a better place like it was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, most shops are doing okay.
Yeah.
I've not heard of any particular other comic shop really struggling to the point of closing down.
Yeah. I think that's similar. Here is weird in Oregon, so I wouldn't even say because we have very few shops, period. But maybe in Portland, I don't go up there all the time. But it seems like they all stayed in business.
Uh,
Northern California, since I did go down once the pandemic kind of lightened up a bit and stuff like that, all the shops that were open except for Lee's have stayed open. One person has recently retired, but it was not due to the pandemic. He was just,
mhm.
I've done this a long time. And one other person, she moved her shop as well. And I think it was a similar situation to you. Well, the rent's too high. You're not negotiating. I got to move. That similar.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
that seems like the general thought of comic stores, at least on the West Coast. I don't know about East Coast shops, but that
right, right. Well, what I
uh,
can say about the ones here in Southern California
yeah.
is because there are a good amount of shops here,
Mm.
competition is, pretty fierce. And I think that that forces the owners to really be smart and to think on their feet. So
Mm.
I think that dealing with pandemic was just one more thing that they had to basically keep their head on a swivel for and really just be ready for anything that comes along and deal with it. So I think that the competition of the area has really hardened them up enough to be able to handle the
Yeah.
pandemic. So I think I don't really know of any shop that closed down
Yeah.
because of the pandemic and never
Yeah.
came back. And if there are, most likely they were just a very small shop to begin with and not
Yeah.
really much of a competition for anybody. But yeah, I've
Yeah.
not heard of any closing down that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Most of the closing down I've seen has been restaurants, more than anything
Yeah.
else. Yeah. It's-
Yeah. And this is Santa Monica where my shop is. So, there's a lot of restaurants.
yeah.
And there was really that was really a big deal where the restaurants in the area, some of them just weren't even coming back.
Yeah.
They're just gone.
And I and
The
I guess that the reason why I started to interrupt, I guess the reason why is because you constantly, like a comic store, yeah, you got your weekly new comics and you get whatever old comics, but it's not a regular thing. Whereas food, you have to reorder daily and stuff like that. You know, it's probably
Well, we
insane.
kind of we kind of faced the same thing because early on in the pandemic, stores were closing down, but
Mhm.
Diamond was still shipping out books.
Oh
So
yeah,
we were still
I
getting the
remember
weekly
that.
books, but there was nobody in the store to buy them. And so my wife and I, we were still going into the shop on
Mhm.
a almost daily basis and calling all of our pull customers and arranging to send all their books to them. We'd email them invoices and we'd send the stuff out to them
Yeah,
because if we didn't do that, the books are still coming and there's no one
yeah,
to buy them, and we can't rely on hopefully the pull customers coming back in 2 3 months and buying all the weeks worth of
right.
stuff that is just piled up. So
Yeah,
we were just had to be real proactive and just be on it and start calling people
yeah.
left and right.
That's what I heard other people did. They did that,
Yeah.
and then they had people like a drive-through. You know, you just drive up to the window. Here's your comics. Here's the money. You're done next. You know, and that was done for months while people couldn't actually physically go into a store. And
Yeah, we were doing that too, and I thought, I really want to just take off the front door and put one of those kiosk doors that you can just open the top part and have a little shelter and just service people, as they
right.
come up. Um, but yeah, my dream of that didn't really actually happen. It
Yeah,
never came about, except
and
when we got looted and they broke the glass on our door.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the closest we got to it.
And there were times there where California was a lot stricter than Oregon, and then it flip flopped for a while. But it's like I was going, how can you make it with all this going on? But
Yeah, because we were doing curbside service, and then the city really came down on us hard about that because they were telling us, you can't do this.
right,
You got to stop.
yeah,
And we didn't really we were relying on that at that point. So
yeah,
that hurt us, but then eventually they turned that back around.
yeah,
And then eventually obviously let us open up completely, which felt weird because it felt like they let us open up too early because there was no change really that much in the pandemic. I think they just let businesses open up out of pressure of people needing to open up their businesses to make money,
yeah,
and which I totally understand. But I also understand that pandemic's not over.
right,
We're not safe,
yeah,
and if we start letting customers just come into the shop, I'm putting myself and my staff at possibly at risk. So I've
right,
got to figure out what's more important, my staff safety or, the shop making money. They're
right,
both important, but, it's like Sophie's choice here.
right. When you originally reopened, were you still required to mask up and everything?
Yeah, we're still doing it now.
Oh, still doing it now. Okay.
Yeah, we don't require customers to. We tell them it's
Oh yeah, yeah. But I mean, there was a while there up here in Oregon where you had to as a customer too for a
oh
brief
yeah, for a
time.
while we had to as well. They
Yeah.
said that you can open, but everyone has to be masked.
Hmm.
And even now we tell people it's encouraged but not required. If you need one, we can give you one.
Yeah.
But us and the staff, we still wear our masks.
Yeah. A lot of staffs do here
Yeah,
at different businesses, especially
right.
restaurants and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
And
And myself, my wife, and all my staff, we all accept and understand that we're doing it because we want all of us to stay safe.
right,
We can't afford for an employee to get COVID and find out like a couple days later after he's already spread it all over the shop
right.
to the rest of the staff.
Yeah.
So we all understand that we're doing it to keep each other safe,
Right.
not just ourselves, and to
Yeah.
keep the shop open. Otherwise, if everyone catches it and we all got to stay home, shop is closed indefinitely.
Yeah. Of course, you may or may not remember if I don't know if I said it on a previous episode. In my 9 to 5 world, I work in healthcare.
Hmm.
I'm office assistant for the county up here, and all health care facilities, and no matter who's working in them or who's in them, all have to wear a mask. So I'm still wearing a mask every day too.
Right,
So,
right.
and which has helped a great deal because a lot of times some of our patients are homeless people or just really bad off, and sometimes you're like, what are they bringing in here? So
Sure.
I don't mind wearing the mask. So
Yeah. And we're in Santa Monica. We have a
uh,
pretty large homeless population as well. And,
yeah,
they come in the shop too. So,
yeah,
it's for our own safety.
yeah. Well, like I said, we're going to keep this one short and sweet because I know you have other things to do. You're like Bob Hope. You have another gig to catch or something. But we got about 7 minutes left, so I mean, I would say this: give a plug for the shop, give a plug for your comics, how they can get in touch with you, and hey, plug your wife's podcast again. So
By all means, let's. So
okay,
if you're in Southern California, in Santa Monica area, come visit us. We're Heidi Ho Comics. We're at, what is it, 1807? I can never remember the new address, but we're on Lincoln Boulevard, right off of the 10 freeway where the 10 freeway exits. You can't miss us. And what's convenient too is that the shop is now in a little kind of a strip mall area with the gas station, which is great for, gassing up before you go home. But also what's really great is so many people pull up to get gas, look over, see a comic shop, and literally while their gas is pumping, run over to look in the shop and saying, hey, I
so
never knew you guys were here. Well, this is great. This is awesome. And then, run back out. And occasionally we see some of those people coming back. So that's nice. So Heidi Ho Comics in Santa Monica, stop on by and see us. And if you want a good laugh, you can check out my comic strip at collectorscomic.com. My comic strip is called Collectors. It's all loosely based on me and my wife and my comic book collecting and all the nerdy stuff she puts up with living with me. So there's that, and you can buy all the books over there except for obviously 1, 2, and 3, which are sold out. But the new trade paperback collects all of that. And if you want to listen to a great podcast, the obviously second best podcast after yours, you can listen to my wife's, which is Comadres y Comics, and it is hosted by 3 Latinas who talk about the comic book industry from a Latin perspective, where they interview Latin comic book creators and talk about books by Latin creators of Latin characters. So it is a great podcast, and you can find them at comadresycomics.com.
and it's in English, I hope.
The name is in Spanish, but yes,
Okay.
the podcast
Okay.
is totally in English. I've had a few people ask me that. So, well, I didn't listen to your podcast because I don't understand, or their podcast because I don't understand Spanish. No, they're
Well,
doing
I
it in
just I
English.
just wanted to
Uh,
double check that
yeah, no, it's
just
in
to
English.
give everyone a
And
warning if they can't speak
besides,
Spanish.
yeah, besides doing interviews of Latin creators and also reviewing books by Latin creators, they have a fun segment which is basically a beer review, where each episode they drink and review a different craft beer from the area here in Southern California. So it's a fun podcast.
Very cool. I
And
will
of
have to
course, I'm partial to it, of course,
have you
and
been on it
biased.
yourself?
Once,
Oh, cool. Okay.
once.
I will have to check it out. And any other new projects you haven't started yet or thinking about? And if you can't disclose anything, that's fine too.
I I do have some new things that I'm going to embark on in the coming year, but not anything that I'm willing to discuss
That's
right
fine.
now. So you'll have to have me back on when those
Ooh.
start happening. Yeah,
All right. Well, it was fun having you back. I'm glad you're in much better spirits. It seems like things are falling into place for you and your shop and with your wife and everything else.
things are fun
And
right now.
yeah, and more positive spirits and blessings and everything else to you
Thank
and
you.
everything else. And I look forward to more of your comic books when they come out. And we will
That
talk
well,
soon.
speaking of that, that's one of the projects I can talk about in the coming
Okay.
year. Early next year, obviously, I will be coming out with book number 7 of Collectors. And
Very cool.
there is a really, really fun, true, 100% true 5-page original story in that one that is not being drawn by me. It's being drawn by a really, really awesome guest artist. So
Cool.
um, I did the Harvey Pekar route on this one where I wrote it and then I got an artist to come in and draw it for me for the book.
It's too bad you should have saved that cover for that one, but oh well. Such is life. Anyway.
Such is life, yes. So that's in the works, and that will be something that I can say that I'm doing for the coming year, obviously.
Very cool. All right. Well, once again, it's always a pleasure to have you as a guest. Thank you for being on and being on video. We had a little bit of glitch getting the camera set up, but hey, we're all working now.
I'm
So,
here.
and oh, I should ask you this quickly before you go. Are you in any going to any comic shows in
Oh,
the next
yeah. Well,
couple months? Yeah,
thank you for reminding me. That's something that I can
yeah, a couple
obviously
minutes.
plug. I'm going to be at LA Comic Con this year, which is the first weekend of December. I forget the exact dates, but it's the first weekend of December, and I'm one of the guests at LA Comic Con.
Okay.
So that's coming up real soon in about what, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that show. It's in my own backyard. It's a lot of fun. The last couple times they've done it, especially this last time they've done it after the first one after the pandemic, it was just nuts. It was just packed with people like sardines. So it was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing you there, and I look forward to having you as a guest when your new projects that are under right now. And thanks again, Eddie, for being a guest on the Fun Ideas podcast. And
Thank
we
you.
will
I
see you
always love
next
talking to
time.
you.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. Have a
Bye
good
bye.
night.